Welcome back. You tuned into Inspired Afternoons with me, your host, Mariam Mia. And now it's time for our educational insight segment. And today I want to focus on something that unfortunately has flared up again. Schools have resumed. Are there still alternate days? Some schools are back to normal schooling days. But sadly, I just seen on the Times Alive last week an article where the Gauteng Department of Education had to step in because a female grade 9 learner has been suspended after an incident of bullying at Ferndale High School in Johannesburg on Friday, said the Gauteng Department of Education. Department spokesman Steve Mabona said they received a video clip which has gone viral on social media in which the pupil is seen assaulting another female pupil outside the school premises. In the video clip, the pupil can be seen being dragging another by the hair while male pupils attempt to stop her. And Mobena has gone on to say that the pupil has been temporarily suspended until the disciplinary process is undertaken. They were also informed that the perpetrator has been allegedly been tormenting fellow learners on several occasions, which is concerning. And the MEC Panyaza Sophie has strongly condemned this ill discipline. That's the word he used in the schooling environment. So on the line, I have joining me the spokesperson of Gauteng Education, Steve Mobana, as well as researcher. We've got Professor Lynette Jacobs speaking to us. So she's done extensive research regarding the problem of violent and disruptive behavior in schools, and she hails from the University of Free State. And I just like to analyze the bullying situation as well as the way forward, because it's seemingly every year. In fact, we have 3 or 4 incidents that make it to the news, and the department has to get involved in it. So, where are schools failing, or our educators requiring more assistance in terms of dealing with incidents in bullying? What are procedures in place, and how can we then change this culture of bullying at school? So I just want to check with Ziad if we've got Mr. Mowena with us, joining us, as well as Professor Lynette Jacobs. Good afternoon, Mr. Mobena.
Yes, good afternoon, Miriam, and to all our listeners.
Thank you for your time, and good afternoon, Professor Lynette Jacobs, and thank you for giving us your time.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. Good afternoon also to my colleague.
So, Mr. Mobena, please tell us, this clip came to your attention. Was this because intervention wasn't done by schools, or did the school then contact you requiring additional psycho support services in terms of dealing with this incident of bullying?
No, well, the video was circulated by concerned citizens because they wanted to understand on what is it that we're going to be doing as a department. As you will know that such incidences, we need to intervene and make sure that the environment is conducive for all our learners in our space. So we then interacted with our officials to say we need to understand from the school perspective what is it that they have done. And well, the school then confirmed that there's some action that has been taken. The learner was, suspended. And we then said the district must monitor the case very closely just to make sure that we don't have a continuation of such incidents happening in the school. And we are quite happy with the process that is unfolding now. But we must say that learners who will normally be given an opportunity to be in the exam room, make sure that they write. If there are tests to be undertaken, and then they will then continue with the suspension. But it's something that it's concerning, it's serious. That's why we don't underestimate it. We actually normally call upon parents to assist us to make sure that the environment is conducive, because teachers, alone, it will be difficult for them to operate in that space where parents are not assisting in making sure that we instill discipline in our children. Because when they come at school, they need to understand that they are there to learn, and to be educated actually.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Mabona, I know as somebody who's in the educational field as well as a child development specialist, as well as a development cognitive research specialist, um, I know every school's supposed to have a bullying policy as well as what steps are taken in terms of when an incident of bullying comes to light. Is there maybe a team, a part of school management that deals with incidents of bullying? So what is the process? And then this time you said the department got involved when the video started circulating. Is it the school's responsibility to inform the department that, listen, this video has gone viral, can you send in the district here, we need additional assistance in terms of this? So what is the process in terms of schools, in terms of their responsibility when an incident of bullying comes to light?
Well, indeed, they need to report to us, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
understand the nature of social media now. The video might hit the social media while the school is still busy with the processes. When the email will arrive at us, only to find that there's a lot that has happened, but we did not find any fault on how the school managed the process, because like as you said, there's a policy that is guiding all schools when coming to cases of bullying. They need to be attended, and there's a committee that is dealing with that at the school level, where you have representation of a teacher, you have a learner representation, you have from the school management someone that will be in that committee, just to make sure that they empower the learners not only with the disciplinary process but also with information that is going to deter them from being violent, from bullying other children, and also empowering learners to detect if someone will then be having the bullying behavioral turn, so that when the bullying continues, then they will be in a position to detect it very easily and report to the office, so that that learner can be attended to.
I want to bring Professor Lynette here because, Professor, you've done extensive research in terms of violent and disruptive behavior in schools. And tell me something in terms of this type of behavior, where does it emanate? Is it a combination of factors? Is the home environment, the community there? What is your research gave us in terms of what we can learn, why our learners so angry and have this propensity to violence so quickly?
Miriam, I think we only have to look around us, and I liked what Mr. Mabona said, that it's not the teachers in the first place who have to deal with this. If we look around us, how people drive, how people react when they are in queues, how the aggression in society, I think, is picked up by the children, and I think in a lot of cases, children don't get a sense of belonging at home, in society, um, and now suddenly schools need to fix that. It is not possible. A school can only deal with what happens on their school grounds, but unfortunately, what happens in society obviously spills into the schools. So it's great to hear of schools that have their policies in place. They're all supposed to have their policies in place, but policy doesn't change behavior. A policy is like managing a problem when it is there. But in order to prevent the policy, we actually need a societal strategy. The um, spiritual leaders, the parents, everybody has to come to the party, including the politicians. I mean, I don't need to expand too much to say that how we see in the news grown ups behaving really like the worst role models ever. um, Parents are under stress. They do not accept responsibility for their children, and I have sympathy with parents. As a parent, I know it's not easy to be a parent, but according to the law, the parent or the guardian is the primary responsible person for the children. So parents can't send their children to school and expect the teachers to deal with the problem. They, in the first place, have to deal with the problem at home.
Well, absolutely. Education is a partnership between a parent and the educator in the school. And I think if you look at it, it's not only the parent, but the community, extended family, and then the school in terms of an educational institution. And I find everybody, instead of working closer, we were shirking the responsibility. For me, one of the silver linings of COVID is educators and parents work closely together in terms of supporting the children with the learning content. And maybe it's time that not only learning content, but morals and values, parents need to work closely with educators in terms of creating a conducive environment for learning for learners. Mr. Mabona, I want to know, in the policy, does it make a provision for corrective behavior because remember, these are children, even though they're perpetrators of these disruptive violent behaviors as we've seen in the clip, but somewhere this is an angry child who needs help. Where does that source of anger is coming from? And for me, that is what the growing years is. Your education is about changing cognitions and rehabilitating learners so that when they leave school, they are productive, positive members of society. So this is a time where we need to nurture. So even the aggressor, we need to work on the aggressor as well, provide support for both the victim and aggressor, because inside it's still a child inside there. It's a teenager who's struggling with their identity. And we need to, both of them need to be rehabilitated and provided with counseling support. Does the department have offer social counseling services in terms of rehabilitation of behavior for aggressors as well?
Indeed, indeed. I mean, that's part of the strategy. You don't leave the child unattended or not supported. You need to support the child, but that does not equate to you not doing anything from what the child would have done. I mean, depending on the severity of the
Mm-hmm.
conduct, because remember, there's a code of conduct in each and every school, and
Absolutely.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
responsibility of making sure that the code of conduct is what the parents will then be wanting to see in their environment. So the SGP has a responsibility to make sure that all parents are happy with the code of conduct, which is going to be assisting them to manage their children's behavior in and around the school. So if the disciplinary process come to a decision that the child must be expelled, as a department, we have a responsibility to then make sure that we support the child, find an alternative school, place the child there, but make sure that we psychologically prepare the child for the next, environment, which will be the new school. Because also you don't want to just take the child to the next school. Meanwhile, one will still be having a problem. So the psychosocial support that we offer to all our children and our educators at some point, because if an educator is affected as well, we have a responsibility to support. We even go to an extent of extending it to families who will then be saying they need that assistance. So we have a responsibility as a department to make sure that we support them.
Professor Jacobs, how do we? I want to, in our a life orientation program in terms of LO, you start from grade R up to matric. I mean, incidentally, today the matrics just wrote the LO paper. Do we cover the aspect of bullying enough or comprehensively in terms of preventing bullying, learning about each other, respect in terms of values like that? In your experience, where is it that we can then just counsel children prior to this behavior happening? Are we doing enough in terms of our learning content and preparing our children in that regard within the curriculum?
In my view, there's enough in the curriculum. However, what
Mhm.
is lacking is a true belief in a restorative approach. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the concept of restorative discipline, where a child is at the same time taught um, to reach out and the whole spirit of acceptance, but at the same time also taught accountability for whatever they do. So you were right when you said it is as important for the perpetrator and for the bully, but it's also important for all the bystanders to understand that you have a wrong deed, you make it right, you take accountability for your own, you take responsibility for what you do, but then you remain part of the community and you make amends and you do something to restore. I know sometimes a child has to be expelled. It's just so. But long before that time, there needs to be an understanding, a collective understanding in our schools and in our society that if somebody does something wrong, it is wrong, but help that person to make it right. Otherwise, we're going to have jails that are full, like we have, and we're not going to have a society that will yield.
And Mr. Mabena, in terms of educators receiving training in terms of handling cases of bullying, cases of violence, um, is that happening? Are they professional development courses focusing on trying to understand behaviors like this and providing just mentorship and counseling? Because you can see a child that's lost and has a propensity to violence, identifying some learners before they actually engage in violent or disruptive behavior to earmark this. Is there some kind of professional development as well as courses for educators then to identify certain learners and maybe just take them under their wings, a mentoring system, a parent? Some of them come from broken homes, and some of these learners don't have a positive father role model, and then maybe ask the SGB within the parent community if somebody can be a substitute father figure for this maybe girl, or substitute mother figure for a learner who you can see is an angry learner, somebody who has that propensity to violence. Is that something the department's looking into?
No, but remember, educators are, in absence of parents, they are
Absolutely.
parents already. By law, they are parents. So in the teaching profession, that is accommodated. They are well taught on how to detect all those things. It's just that from the department perspective, what we need is a matter of us making sure that they are well supported. When they detect whatever, then they report. The necessary district will then be in a position to say, yes, we will support you, because in every district office has that psychosocial unit where they will then visit the school and require additional support. We have a sister department of social development that we work with. If they need more of that support, they will then extend it at that level. Then they will receive that. So there's no need for us to focus more on making sure that we develop them on that score, because already they are quite aware of what to look out for, and then they will then report to the necessary officials who will then be assisting them with that support. But to answer the question that you asked the professor there, the curriculum, it's very clear when coming to bullying, as it is introduced at grade 4 already. When you look at the LO, you will see the element of introduction of uh, bullying, on what is it that what is bullying, how do you detect it, and what is it that you need to do. All those are elements which are introduced at grade 4 already. So it has been identified long time ago as a challenge. That's why it was introduced in the curriculum. It's there. So there's no one who can say that it's not accommodated. It's there.
I think, what, in theory, we have excellent policies from what I'm gathering here. It's in the curriculum, and I think maybe uh, there needs to be, for me, a greater communication between the parents and educators in terms of, like Professor mentioned earlier, it's a societal problem. And I think all the role players need to come together in terms of managing this. And school needs to be a community, because the school is a microcosm of society. And I think if we have that attitude of getting more parents involved in school initiatives, in school activities, and that bodes well for a school community, I think as you've mentioned, Professor, parents are stressed out, they're busy at work, expected the teachers to really be in loco or parentis to take over that role, and teachers feel overwhelmed. They've got learning criteria to meet in terms of department regulations, sorting this out, and it just becomes too much for educators as well if they're not well supported. So for me, I think as Mr. Mabona, you've said, structures are there, policies there, support system is there, but I think we all need to work together and just offer support to schools as communities in terms of helping our children and leading them. That is what education is all about, leading a child towards responsible adulthood. And I think everybody is responsible in terms of the education of a child, and we need to go back to that triangle of the learning top and then the two support structures working closer together to lead the child as they journey to responsible adulthood. Any final comments, Mr. Mabena?
No, parents need to take responsibility and make sure that they participate in the education of their children, because the passive parenting would not assist us. We need to make sure that we understand what is happening at school. If we are called for a meeting, we need to come in numbers and want to understand what is it that the school want to interact with us on. Make sure that we empower ourselves to know what is happening in and around our environment. That's how we're going to conquer. We don't need parents that are going to encourage that they must not be schooling. Or you go, I mean, like today, this school is banned down in Katlego. You ask why? Because they want a brick and mortar school. So you ban the current school that is there, which you still need. Uh, you then want to tell us that you want brick and mortar, and you know that brick and mortar will take time. Now the education of your children is derailed because you then wanted a brick and mortar. So all those elements we need to take in cognizance that look, whatever decision we make or whatever action we take, we need to think about the future of our children. So we don't need to be passive. We need to make sure that we understand what is happening in and around our schools.
Professor Jacob, closing remarks from yourself?
Yes, I think first of all, everybody in society need to understand that they, instead of criticizing the school, they need to become partners of the school. Secondly, each one of us need to reflect on our own behavior and make sure that we model good behavior and compassion.
Thank you, Mr. Mabena. I think Gauteng Education is in good hands together with yourself and all your colleagues and our esteemed MEC, who's always visible, available as well, and always when there is an issue, Gauteng Education is on the ball. So I feel proud that I am in Gauteng, and Gauteng Education really you are active there and you're concerned, and I hear it today from yourself in terms of this, as well as well informed. So thank you so much, and thank you for giving us your time on the difficult today. A day like today, as you mentioned, school was burned down. I mean, that is a major setback, and logistic wise to get now the school up and running. We salute you, and if any way that we can support you in any which way here on Salam Media, your online humanitarian platform, please, we are here to support you. And thank you, Professor Jacobs, for your input and your insight. And we're so pleased that we have researchers that have vested interest in the education of our learner. Thank you to both of you for your valuable input here on Salam Media. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
And that was our spokesperson for education, Gauteng Education, Mr. Steve Mabona and Professor Lynette Jacobs. And we were reflecting on bullying in school. And yes, parents, we need to become involved, not only in our children's school education in terms of learning content, but in terms of supporting the school community and school environment. The more involved parents we have supporting the school community, the better that school is going to fare in terms of their values, the morals, and also to bring up responsible adults. So please do get involved in any capacity you can and support the school and your educational institution. We're going to go for a short break. And when we get back, we're going to be speaking to Kaylee and Justin regarding the founders of Kalami.